Okay, so we had just put our text in right here. We want that to show up throughout this animation, and then right about the halfway point we'll go ahead and we'll change it and make that easy. Just do an F6 right there, go back to the document that you have access to and swipe across, Command C, copy, paste that in on this frame here, and voila. I'll keep doing this throughout the video, but I won't explain it every time. So just make sure you get the concept is you just do an F6 to carry the text over, and then just go in there, swipe across, and either type what you want to type in there or copy it and paste it from the document. Okay, so let's demo easing out. So click right here at frame 150, do an F6 to give me a copy of the vehicle, and then go over to frame 170, F6 again, put my classic tween in there with the right click, and then let's adjust our starting frames. So I'm going to click and drag this with the shift key held down so it can't pop up or down, and then I want this to finish out inside the frame because we want it to look like they had to apply the brakes. So there's our animation, and if I just play it by clicking here, we can see that it doesn't look very natural. So let's try putting ease out on it. So maximum value of 100 is what we can achieve in there. And there's your easing out. Okay, so let's catch up here on the take-home quiz. An object that moves from a complete stop, like an accelerating auto, will ease blank to its motion. That would be ease in. And then as we just saw, a moving object that comes to a stop, like a braking auto, will ease out of its motion. Since we've got a pretty good amount going here, it obviously makes sense to be saving all along the way. But whenever you've got something and it's working good, you like what you see, it's probably a good time to make a copy of the entire, at least file, in some cases the entire folder system. Now I talked about making sequential copies of folders earlier. Let me just show you a real simple way to make a copy of what you're working on so that you can go back to it. What I like to do is keep Flash constantly working on the same file. So what I would do is just, again, make sure that it's saved, but then I would go to my folder structure that I'm using. In your case, that's probably just going to be right on the desktop. In my case, it's buried a little bit deeper. But just go to the FLA file that you were using and just simply copy it by right-clicking on it and selecting copy, or clicking and dragging, holding down the option key, and then giving it a sequential name. So I would actually go in there, take the extra step, click on it, hit return, and then maybe do something like this where you say underscore V2. And then the next time you do this, you'll call it V3, V4, etc. And as soon as you get to the point where this file that you've been working on fails you, you can go back to your previous versions. And if you're worried about it taking up file space, eventually delete the older ones like 2, 3, 4, and 5 and keep 6 and 7. But the nice way about doing it this way, as opposed to doing a save as in the program, is now it's just really easy to go back here and continue working, because we don't have to redirect it to a new file or anything. We just keep working on the one that we've been working on. We'll move on to the topic of masking. And we didn't use up too much space with that last one, so I'm not going to bother making a folder yet. Let's make a new layer, and we'll call this image. Make one more new layer, and we'll call this craft. And we'll make one more, and we'll call this mask. Okay, so first thing that we want to do is import our image. So we'll go and give ourselves a new keyframe for that image by doing an F7, and then we'll go File, Import, and then you have a choice of just importing things into the library so they're there for your future use, but if you're ready to use it, you can go ahead and click Import to Stage. Import to Stage also puts a copy in the library. And we go out to our folder, and the assumption here is you followed the instructions earlier on and downloaded this midterm JPEG. Click on Open, puts it in there. And actually, let me show you a little trick here. I'm going to Command Z to back that up. If you want something to go right in place, like centered, double click on the hand tool first before you import the image. Now we'll go ahead and we'll do that again. Import to the stage and select it. And then boom, it places it like right perfect in the center. I'll Command minus out and you can see that it puts it perfectly in there. And since we made the stage the same size as the image, everything's going to work out perfectly for us. So what I want to do in this video is just play a little joke on the audience and make it look like a spacecraft is flying in here. But I want it to go behind this tree, but I want us to be able to see it here. I want it to go behind this tree. I want us to see it here. I want it to go behind him. I want us to see it here and then behind that tree. So that's where we use something called masking. I'm going to go ahead and lock all the layers except for the one that says craft on it so that I can make sure that I select it and that's where I'm actually going to draw the craft. So I'll give myself an F7, and then with just the basic shape tools, I'll use the oval tool, and I'll create something that looks like a spacecraft. There's my craft. I took the extra step and turned it into a symbol. No longer need these guides, so I'll go up to View and Guides, and I will clear them. And then I am going to now unlock the mask layer as well. And what I'm going to do is double click here, and that creates this is how you create a mask, by clicking there. Click OK. You can see that it has a little slightly different icon on it now. And then I can take the craft and just double click on it, say masked, the ED, and it indents it there. So now that's saying that this layer is going to have an effect on this layer, much like when we used the guides before. Now, to see how the masking actually works, let's create a little bit of an animation with our craft. We'll make it just go from one side of the stage to the other. And we'll make it go slow because you know how UFOs like to hover around a little bit. So how about 2 seconds worth? So 40 more frames would take us out to about 250. And let's go ahead and learn apply what we've learned, and we'll put some easing in there. Well, yeah. These will make it kind of ease out so that it maybe slows up towards the end. If you don't like that, you can always go back and change it. And so let's put our finishing state over here. Extend out our frame with the image. F5. And okay, so we have a little something like that. Now on the mask layer, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the rectangle tool and I'm going to draw some. I'm going to use a different color just so it's obvious what the craft is and what the color is of our mask. And I need to create a spot for that, so I'll click there, do a F7, and then I'm just going to draw out a rectangle here like this. If you scrub the playhead, it doesn't look like this mask does anything in particular. If you were to do a command return right now, you would see what the mask does. But if you want to see it in preview mode where you can scrub the playhead or just click the play button in here, then what you have to do is lock the mask and the thing that is being masked. And then now, if you scrub the playhead, you can see what it does is we only see the object there, which is a little bit counterintuitive to the name. You would almost think that where you make the mask is where it would be masked. In other words, where you wouldn't see it. But the opposite is true. So just keep that in mind. The suggestion I would give you is whenever you use masking, if it's been a while since you've done it, just try a simple experiment like this. Because now I can go back, and now that I realize how it works, I can just select what I've done here and get rid of it, and then now start to make my actual masking. So in theory, what I would want to do is draw out on the mask layer something that occupies this space, something that occupies, basically everything between this tree and this tree except for him. And then that would be it. So then we would see it here and we would see it throughout here. I'm going to show you the way that I like to work. This may not make sense to you as I'm doing it, but I think that it will in the end. So here's what I like to do is I'll go to the mask layer and I'm actually going to draw on the areas that I don't want to see. And I'm going to draw the whole entire frame because maybe later on I want to come back in and have the spaceship swirl around. So I'm not going to worry like, oh, I didn't cover enough area. So I'm going to cover everything right now that should not be seen. And I'm going to do it with the pen tool. So I've zoomed in on him, got the pen tool, and then what I'm going to do is just start. If you're real good with the pen tool, you could draw it really accurate. If you're not, because it's going to happen so fast, you really could just almost do just like click, click, click type drawing with it. Once I have that drawn, I'll come over here, click on the paint bucket tool, pick the same exact color, and that way when I click in here I now have one continuous shape where the fill and the stroke have merged together. If ever you have problems filling something, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see all of the tools. You have this this gap option where if, let's say, your path that you made around him didn't come together, you had a small opening in it, you can pick one of these options and it'll be more forgiving of how it fills it in. Okay, so I've continued on the process, took care of the other areas. Just a little side note before we continue. When you work with photographs and or things like gradients inside of Flash, things that you might be copying in from other programs like Illustrator and photographs from Photoshop, be wary of the amount you use because this program, Adobe Animate, thrives with simple vector graphics, but if you start loading it up with bitmap images and gradients, you can really slow it down. So keep that in mind. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, Steve, you did just the opposite of what you're supposed to do here, and I'll show you that that is indeed what I've done. The craft now shows in the areas where I didn't want it to show. So why did I do something so silly? Well, watch this. If I now go click on this layer, make another layer, and this is going to be a temporary layer. On this layer, I am going to draw, and I need this to be a completely different color. So I'll get rid of any stroke. I'll make the fill black, for example, and I'm going to make a big old block across the whole entire stage. Now what I'm going to do is unlock my mask layer, turn this layer off for a second, the temporary one. I'm going to select everything on this layer. I'm going to do an edit, cut. I'm going to go back to the temporary layer that I made, turn it on, lock everything else, do an edit, paste in place. Now if I take these shapes and move them, they create a hole in here for me.